Welcome to Y Nada Más, a Real Madrid podcast.
All right. What is going on, everybody? And welcome to another episode of Y Nada Más, a Real Madrid podcast. And yep, it's time for another podcast about all things Real Madrid, all things La Liga. Occasionally, I'm going to talk about people's stupidity and people's idiocy when it comes to following this sport, and we saw a lot of that this weekend. But before I get into all that, once again, I am Eric Rivera. I am the host of Y Nada Más podcast. Thank you for listening. To all of you that listen, remember to follow us at Y Nada Más podcast on Twitter or X. That's where I'm most active. And lately, I've been chiming in and talking to just chiming in and leaving my ideas there with a lot of just people that are. I just feel like, man, some people take this shit way too seriously. I mean, there's a reason. I mean, I love the sport. Don't get me wrong. I mean, that's why I'm doing a podcast. I invest my time in doing a podcast. I don't make any money off of this thing. I don't make absolutely any money off of this thing. I do it because it's a labor of love and I enjoy doing it. But there's a lot of things I'm going to get into about this today during the podcast that I think, it's my perspective. It's something that I feel needs to be said. But at the same time, I'm pretty sure you've heard it from all sorts of different people over the last few days, probably tired of it. But it is what it is. I mean, it's what's going on in the sport. And it's also defending, obviously, Real Madrid against a bunch of, freaking idiots that happen to be from one of our biggest rivals in the sport right now. And so it is what it is. Anyway, you can also follow me guys at YNM Podcast. That's YNM Podcast. On Instagram, I'm always posting things up there. Graphic designer, putting up stuff as well. Follow me there. I mean, I don't know how big it is on Instagram to really follow, football related stuff, but it is what it is, man. Just follow me there. Give me a follow. It's great. Helps me out. On Facebook, we're also available at Y Nada Más Podcast. And of course, please, if you are listening to the podcast, that's awesome, and I thank you very much for doing that. And but please also remember that we have a YouTube channel. I am doing these on video. Another thing I kind of want to put out there before getting started on talking about everything that happened over the weekend with the Derby, Madrid Derby, and all that craziness. I also wanted to talk about the fact that. I don't usually live stream, and live stream is like a huge thing now. Everybody does it. My son's always telling me about live stream. Dad, you should do live streams. Why don't you do like reactions and all that kind of stuff to the game? So I definitely want to do like watch alongs, but I just, I think I want to grow the amount of people that follow me more to sign of, chat with you guys and have watch alongs as we're watching the game, right? And it doesn't matter. I mean, you could be somebody who's not a Madrid fan and watching the game, like, whatever. But the whole idea is to like watch it together and see it and, maybe just do like some reactions. But I'm still going to do it. I'm going to live stream it. Maybe just cut it up after the fact. It's just, I don't know what's better to do a live stream and do like a watch along or to just create a reaction video after the fact, I guess. But anyway, it's just one of those things. Or should I do like a live podcast? I don't know. I think for a live podcast or like a live streamed podcast, I would have to have, more people jumping onto the stream, and currently I don't have a lot of fans on YouTube just yet, and I really want to grow that. So with that said, please guys, hit up my YouTube, give it a subscribe, hit the notification button, and help me grow that on there. So a little bit of cleaning house, essentially. I've been out for the last few days. My son got really, really sick. Both of my sons got really, really sick. Then I got real sick. I'm still suffering from it. I don't know if you can hear it in my voice. Now my mother-in-law has it. My mother-in-law lives with us. And, it's just really, bad, and it turned into like a bronchitis for my son. So I was feeling absolutely terrible, which is why we played against Espanyol last week. I didn't do an Espanyol podcast. Then we did Alaves. Just been so many games going on. And then today is Monday. Just got back from work, which is why I'm kind of, in this nice shirt and not usual T-shirt or whatnot. And sometimes I wear my Madrid jerseys, but I have them all hanging in the back there. I came back and I said, I'm going to do it today because we have a Champions League coming up. The whole thing with the Madrid Derby is still going on. The whole fallout from that debacle, and so that's that, so it's not that, I don't want to, like I said, I've really am 100% dedicated to trying to keep up. And I said, it's going to be once a week or, twice a week if possible, especially with Champions League coming up. So we're going to play Lille on Wednesday. Today's Monday, September 30th. We play them on the 2nd of October. And maybe if I can get a chance to jump on the podcast, I will. But like I said, I got a day job and all sorts of things are going on. So I always try to keep it at least to promise you guys one a week. All right. That's the idea. So let's jump into the podcast. I mean, I wrote a bunch of notes and things like that. So sometimes you'll kind of hear me reading off of that stuff. And I just want you to know that, it's not like I'm like reading off a script or anything. I make notes about kind of what I want to talk about and whatnot. So here we go. Anyway, but honestly, man, I honestly think that really it's crazy to me, but, I really dislike Barcelona. I really dislike Barcelona. But I think it's crazy to me in a sense, of course, with Spain and Real Madrid and Barcelona and, the issues with Spanish nationalism in Catalonia and the history that, the bloody history of Spain that people are, is still a sore subject for a lot of people in Spain. So there is the political, like the socio-political ramifications of the rivalry between Barcelona and Real Madrid. Those things, they extend for many years into the past, and then everybody pointing fingers and blaming, who's really the team that Franco loved, if Franco even liked football or cared about it, and who cares, man? The guy's dead, and he was a piece of shit, like pretty much every dictator is. I don't feel any sort of happiness in the fact that Franco was part of the Spanish state. I'm not from Spain. I have, ancestry that comes from Spain, but I don't really care about any of that. And then, like I said, when I do this podcast, it's from the English language perspective. In the English language perspective, I think from the outside looking in to people that are new to La Liga, all of the things, they don't know all of this type of history of Spain, and they, maybe they'll read up on it. So they want to kind of, the juicy rivalry of Barcelona versus Spain seems cool, but to some people it is obviously a bigger issue than just football. It is, like I said, it is like a socioeconomic issue. It has to do with politics. It has to do with identity, with the identity of Catalonia, with the language of Catalan, with Spanish nationalism, and the fact that, a lot of Barcelona fans tend to be on the side of Catalonian or Catalonia's independence from the Spanish state. So there's a lot of that kind of stuff, right? And then you have, Real Madrid, which is, seen as the team from the capital, the team from the status quo, the team from the monarchy, as in the Real, the team that, of course, Franco was apparently a fan of, although there's rumors that it wasn't really a fan of it. He was actually more of a fan of Atlético Madrid, which at that time was Atlético Aviación, and had to be, was more linked to the military. So he would probably be more along the lines of being fans with them. But when he saw like the allure that Real Madrid had to the fact that they were doing so well in Europe, and they had this sort of appeal with them outside of Spain, and had this how would I say, this panache and the success they were having, kind of making a name for themselves, and by and making Spain, bringing attention to Spanish football. He saw it as a sort of maybe the idea is that he saw it as a sense of national pride, and kind of stood behind Real Madrid. Listen, I am not a historian and all this kind of stuff, so I know things that I've read. I know things because I love history. I've studied history. But, and there's a lot of other things. There's a lot of other nuances there that I don't care to get into nor talk about. There are people far more well-versed on the subject, and you can listen to those guys. And they're going to give you your point of view. At this point, it's kind of like, another hot-bedded topic right now, which is Israel and Palestine. And it's kind of like, you're either one side or the other, and, there is no gray area. There's no gray area. That's the problem, and the Catalan side is going to give you its side, and the Spanish side is going to give the more nationalistic Spanish side is going to give you their side of things, and then caught in the middle is this game of football, which is Real Madrid versus Barcelona, and for the people, like I said, the English-speaking people that are coming to La Liga now, or starting to understand or watch La Liga, or have been fans of Real Madrid, all of this other extra stuff that happens with the politics of Spain and the history of Spain are neither here nor there. We just want to see a game of football, and the fact that for many years Barcelona attracted some of the biggest players in football, as did Real Madrid, and so you had two of the biggest rivalries of all time. Obviously, Cristiano and Messi even made that even bigger, right? So that is the precursor to everything, of Barcelona. So but my hatred for Barcelona has really never been about them being Catalans or anything like that, because I don't care about any of that stuff really. My hatred for Barcelona has always been from the footballing sense. Culers just being, for the longest time. I mean, they were causing us a bunch of headaches when they had Messi, when they had Neymar, when they had Luis Suarez, even before that with Ronaldinho, obviously, and then we had the Galácticos. So there was always this huge rivalry aside from all this other stuff, right? Going back even further, you have Butragueño. Going back even further, you have Alfredo Di Stefano, you have Paco Gento, you have, Laszlo Kubala on the Barcelona side. You have, lots of people on the Barcelona side. You have, lots of history there as well, right? So it's a long-standing rivalry. And so my hatred, I guess, has always been, and I use that word hatred, but not in the literal sense of hatred, because the word hatred has a heavy connotation, right? But the idea is that Real Madrid and Barcelona have been these rivals forever, and I dislike them simply because I dislike them. I want to see them lose. I want to see them get relegated. Sometimes I feel bad for them in certain aspects. Sometimes I talk to friends that are Barcelona fans, and we chat and we talk about the players that they have. Like, for me, I'm not one of these Madridistas that is so cutthroat that you have to, al enemigo ni agua, like, no, not even water for our enemies, and that kind of stuff, like the hatred has to go way, way, way deeper, right? And it's insanity, because at the end of the day, like, you got to admit, Lamine Yamal is a fantastic player, Pedri, of course, with all these injuries he had, he's a fantastic player, but, injuries have done him in. Lewandowski, before he came to Barcelona, was a fantastic striker and still is, even though he's, getting up there in age. I happen to like Araujo. I think he's a great defender, So there are certain aspects. I happen to like Ter Stegen. I think I actually think sometimes the fans of Barcelona are unfair with the guy, So there are things that I will respect about them, but at the end of the day, I want to see them lose. That's the point. I want to see them lose. That's my rivalry with them. But with that said, after this weekend, and then weekends and weekends and weekends that have been happening for the last few months, I would say, for a while now, Atlético Madrid has been officially, for me, the team I hate the most in La Liga. And in world football, for that matter. I'm sure they have decent, normal fans. But they consistently, like, based on, the things we saw this weekend and the things we've seen in the past, of course, the racism, the Nazi salutes, the Frente Atlético, which are just a bunch of scumbags, and you're going to hear me call them scumbags a bunch of times on this podcast. Good thing is I don't monetize this thing, so I'm not going to get flagged for saying like profanity, because that's what I'm going to do in this podcast. But they shoot themselves in the foot consistently. Like, let's say Atlético Madrid as an organization shoots themselves in the foot with pricks like the people they have in the Fondo Sur, with like El Frente Atlético, these just absolute crazy thugs that they have in still allowing them into the stadium. And, the crazy thing is, I just, I don't, this doesn't just happen in Spanish society. This happens in everywhere right now. I think it's consistently going on right now. It's this idea, this whataboutism. So it's your way. The whataboutism is, somebody brings up to you something that they're unhappy with, right? And this is happening in politics and everything. And it's like, but what about this? What about that? So it's just basically you're bringing up, in order for you to justify or to defend a shitty action, you bring up a just as shitty action or worse action that was committed in the past and say, how come nobody ever said anything about that? I didn't see anybody getting up in arms about that. And it's such a crap argument, because you're bringing up something that came from the past, and probably at that moment it was a big deal and people did talk about it at that moment. You just don't remember it because there's a recency bias. Since it didn't happen recently, you don't remember how big of a story it was at that time when it did happen. So you say, well, they didn't make such a big stink about people throwing things at goalkeepers, or people throwing things at players. A couple of years ago when they did it to Piqué, or I remember they did it in a Sevilla Real Betis game. I think it was Jordan from Sevilla got hit by like a stick that flew from the crowd, because Betis fans threw it from the crowd. And I happen to like Betis, but I'm not going to defend that type of behavior, And this thing is, it's funny to me, like, people are so caught up in this idea that you have to defend your team, defend your colors, defend bad behavior. If it comes from your team, it's okay, but if it comes from a different team, it's not. No, listen, if Real Madrid fans were throwing crap at Oblak, who I happen to actually like Oblak, were throwing things at Oblak, I'd be equally incensed and be calling out the violence and saying, people are just fucking stupid. Listen, I want to go to the Bernabeu with my son, and the last thing my two sons, and the last thing I want my two sons to see is people throwing stuff at the other players. And not only that, but the language that is consistently used in games. Now, I understand. Language is one thing. I curse like a sailor around my kids sometimes. It's not a great thing to do. I don't advise you do it, because then they go and repeat it at school and I get the calls, right? But I get the calls from the school saying, your son dropped an F-bomb in class today. But the viciousness with the things that are being said lately, and especially in Spain. Now, obviously, this is not a one-off. I mean, I was just looking at El Chiringuito posting, which is another cesspool of information. They just they love to just prick. They're the one of those. It's like the yellow journalism, what we call it, amarillista, as we would say, like the tabloid journalism, which is creating animosity, poking the bear, instigating, creating the drama, and then when the drama kind of gets out of hand and real shit hits the fan, they kind of stand back and go, whoa, that's not good, right? We can't tolerate that. When you've been part of this whole thing narrative for the longest time, they've been doing it with Vinicius, talking about Chiringuito. They've been doing it with Vinicius, until God forbid, until one day somebody runs into this crowd, runs out of the crowd and tries to hurt this kid. Or, a player loses his mind and tries to break the kid's leg or something. And they're going to be like, oh, no, we can't tolerate that. We can't tolerate that. When you've been doing things like this when you've been saying these type of things and you've been instigating this type of animosity towards the guy for the past 3 years, 4 years that he's been at, more than that he's been at Real Madrid, but even more so the last 2 years. So Chiringuito has a way to play in this, Jose Pedredol, and I say, all the names, I'll bring them up. It doesn't matter. I'm an English language podcast, whatever. If they ever listen to it, they can listen to it. But Jose Pedredol and fucking Jota Jordi and Cristobal Soria and all these pricks that are anti-Madridistas, and then they try to throw stones, but then hide the hand, right? Throw stones and then hide the hand. So essentially, they're trying to. It's kind of like, we're going to insult, but then we're going to say, oh, no, we didn't mean it that way, kind of thing. Like the racist crap they brought up, I forgot the guy's name, thankfully. But the guy that brought up the whole thing with Vinicius and said, if he wants to dance like a monkey or whatever, he should go back to Brazil, that kind of shit. And, all that kind of stuff, this guy brings it up, right? So, and nobody says anything. Because in the Spanish press, and I think, and it's not just Spain, because, there's a reason, and I'm going to bring this up, but there's a reason I think Latin American countries, and I come from a Latin American country. I mean, I wasn't born there, but I grew up there for many years, not in just one Latin American countries, but 3 Latin American countries. I lived in Ecuador, I lived in Peru, and I lived in Colombia, and it's really the same thing all across the board. There's corruption, there's just a lack of respect of authority, a lack of respect of el prójimo, or the people next to you. There is no love thy neighbor. It's like, basically everyone's out to get everybody, and sure, we're a lively bunch and have fun and do all this type of stuff, but then we have things like football and we lose our fucking minds, and we turn into violence. And then you see it happening in Spain, that why can't Spain get a grip on all this violence and racism and stupidity that's happening in their league? And you're like, well, we, to be honest with you, we are, our entire country is all our countries in South America, we're essentially created, colonized, and influenced by this culture over the years. And so we suffer from the same shit. Just look at Colombian soccer games where people get stabbed, Mexican soccer games where people are getting killed. You have games in Argentina where people are assaulted and things are thrown and everything. And it's crazy to me because I see the things that come out of people's mouths are like, oh, it's passionate and you don't understand. You'll never understand the way we celebrate things. We have passion. It's something that you gringos don't have. You Europeans don't have the same passion as we do. Listen, man, that's not passion. That's stupidity. And you're a fucking idiot if you think that throwing things at people, insulting players, all this kind of shit makes you a passionate fan. No, you're not. You're not a passionate fan. You are a scumbag. That's what it is. That is the word, the terminology I like to throw out. That is what it is. And so, anyways, going back to the whole whataboutism, it's just always like, oh, well, what about these? These guys are better than these guys are worse than this, and nobody does this and nobody does that. Nobody said this when Thibaut Courtois got hit in the Bernabeu. Nobody said this when Real Madrid fans were calling Pep Guardiola, whatever, where they're calling him a maricon and all this kind of stuff, and yeah, all of that stuff was equally just as bad, Sure, as a Real Madrid fan, maybe I'm going to have a bias and be like, that's funny, but at the end of the day, now that I have kids, probably wouldn't want them to be in that environment, right? And now that my sons are playing, soccer or football, I see crazy parents that, talk trash and stuff, and you're like, dude, these kids are 9. Relax, relax. It's just a game. And the thing is, it doesn't happen in other sports. Football is the only sport where this kind of crap is consistently happening. You could say basketball, but basketball, it does not happen, at least here in the United States, which is the biggest league for basketball in the world. American football, obviously, we're the only ones that really play the game. But let's say those 2 big sports, baseball, you don't see people running out onto the field, cussing people out. You just don't see that. You know, people like to bring up the fact that like Balkan countries, when it comes to basketball, are just as crazy with like ultras and kind of stuff like that. The Greeks and all that kind of stuff as well. You know, other countries. But the majority of this kind of behavior at like a high level, the only sport that tolerates this or seems to have a problem with this type of animosity, hatred, violence at a high level of the sport is football. It's the only one that has that. And thankfully in other countries, like I would say in the UK, they try to shut it down. When we talk about Real Madrid, they got rid of the Ultrasur. And then people are going to say, oh, well, they didn't get rid of the Ultrasur. They just, they kind of switched them all up. Like some of those guys are still there. Yes, I know that some of the heads of Ultrasur who are fascist pricks, are still like now part of like the Grada de Animación, and they changed them around or whatever. But the idea is that they separated them and they told them like, either get with the program or we're going to kick you out completely. So it's a way of calming the storm without kicking them out completely. And they did the same with I think they're called the Boixos in Barcelona. They did the same thing. And so it comes time now for Atlético to do the same thing with Frente Atlético. Because I've seen these guys consistently. They're wearing Nazi insignia. They're doing Nazi salutes. I've seen them do it. It's not just one or two people. And this whole narrative that they have in Spain of just one or two people doing things, that is not one or two people doing things. Oh, it's a whole group of ultras. So it's a whole group of ultras, and yes, maybe not every ultra is involved in that stuff, but getting in a group called ultras. To me, honestly, these people that are in ultra groups, man, I mean, you can call yourself an ultra fan. Maybe I would jump into the Grada de Animación, start singing songs and things like that. But the minute that group starts calling other players cunts and starts, telling them that like, I hope you die, and, starts talking about their family members and stuff like that, that's not passion, man. That's idiocy. That's not passion. That's stupidity. You're not helping anyone with that. You really think the players on the field are really getting anything from that? They're getting anything from that. If most of these players that are professional, most of them tune all this crap out, all this stuff, whether it's coming from their side of the stadium or coming from the opposing side of the stadium. They're trying to tune it all out, and they're trying to stay as professional as possible, because at the end of the day, these guys get paid to play this sport, right? So, and it's great. Like, once again, football is the only sport with this third world bullshit. You know what I mean? And this is what I have to say to these people, to people that like to defend the type of behavior of Atlético Madrid's, of Frente Atlético, or the Fondo Sur, or the Ultra Sur, or the Boixos, or any kind of ultra group. You are cheering for a bunch of millionaires that play a sport. So you may love it, you love them, you are passionate, but when the game is over, your life continues to be just as crappy. Maybe it isn't, but it's probably just as crappy. You're not a millionaire. Most of you are not a millionaire. If you're in an ultra group, you're not a millionaire. Chances are you're not a millionaire, because millionaires don't join ultra groups. They're busy off doing other shit on the weekends. They're probably watching the game, but they're not sitting in with the ultras. You know what I'm saying? So life continues. You're all going to go back to your jobs. You're all going to go back to your regular lives. And meanwhile, the players are going to keep making millions. The club that you so support does not pay you for your loyalty, for the loyalty you say you have for the club. They do not pay you money to support them, So, like, while I always defend my colors, always defend Real Madrid, and I love getting into back and forth with banter with friends and friends and people that I know that are fans of rival teams, taking it to the level of insults to players, like I said, calling them cons, calling them, telling them that they're, faggots and all this kind of stuff, telling them that you want to die. It's just outright stupidity. And the only people that do that are mouth breathers who have no identity. Like, you people that do this have no identity other than supporting your favorite football club. Love the club, cheer on the club, be loyal to the club, but don't be a prick for the club. The players aren't asking you to do that. Like, Vinicius isn't asking any of us to, cuss out everybody from the other side. He's not asking us to do that. He himself is defending himself on the field. And my support for him is that call out the racism, call out the bullshit. Tell Koke that you've won two European Champions Leagues and he has zero. And that he's never going to amount to anything when he tries to get up in your face. That's banter, dude. That's banter. And that's banter between two guys that are in the same profession, But management isn't asking you to defend them. No one is going to give you a cookie for being your team's number one fan. I mean, I think about this. You throw things at players. God forbid you might hurt a player. Then you hurt a player. Cops are going to come. Imagine going to jail for a team that couldn't possibly give two shits about you. You know what I mean? Like, you lose your job because obviously you're going to jail. You lose your family because you're probably not going to see them for a little bit, right? You lose basically your livelihood over a game. And you think these guys, these Frente Atlético guys, with their masks and their swastikas and their lighters and their flags and whatever the fuck, and just trying to act hard or whatever, and they're probably roided up, they probably try to talk about how they hit the gym every day, bro, and all the women, these alpha male bros, probably think it's hot. They're like the hottest shit. And I see a lot of you guys on Twitter. I see a lot of you guys on X defending this type of behavior and being like, yeah, dude, we're going to support our colors. We're the fucking baddest asses, man. Like, oh, honor. Fuck your honor, dude. That's not honor, man. That is just being an asshole over a team that doesn't care about you. Griezmann, Koke, all these guys do not care about you. If you end up throwing stuff and going to jail, they're not going to come and bail you out, you idiots. Listen, man, I met Griezmann. He came and was drinking a smoothie here in Miami, right? Drinking a smoothie at a smoothie spot. It's not there anymore. And I approached him and I was like, yo, can I get a picture with you? I didn't say, yo, can I get a picture with you in English? But, kind of was like, hey, man, can I get a picture with you? Because it's Griezmann. It doesn't matter that he was with Atlético Madrid. I didn't care. He's like one of the best players in the world. He's he's a very world-class player. He had won a World Cup already, at that time when I ran into him. So I take a picture with him. And then he sees the back of my phone, and I think I've told this story before. He sees the back of my phone, and I say, I'm a Real Madrid fan. And you know what he told me? No pasa nada, tranquilo. Basically, don't worry about it. Take it easy. It's okay. He didn't care because for me, I was like, yo, you're a great player, man. I'm happy to meet you. I want to take a picture with you. I don't hate the guy. I'll hate him during the game if he scores on us, but I don't hate the guy. I don't wish him bad, or anything terrible in his life, So imagine losing and I guarantee you, like, if I was his number one fan and I throw something and hit Vinicius and then I end up going to jail, the guy's not going to give a shit. If anything, he's probably going to be like, I don't want to be associated with that fuckface. This guy throwing stuff at other players, man. Because for him, it could be on the other side. It could be a Madridista throwing things at him and it hits him. He's not going to tolerate it. So why would he tolerate, somebody from his supporting end throwing something at players? Like, get a grip, people. Get a grip. And the thing is, if all isn't that all of this stuff about throwing things and everything like that isn't bad enough, we have the Frente Atlético with their, racist rhetoric and all the all the racism that they bring into a mix, because they can't handle the fact that a black player like Vinicius happens to not only be currently one of the best players in the world, and likely the next Ballon d'Or winner, right? And the fact that he's, an in-your-face kind of player, the fact that, yes, he's provocative and he will clown you, he will join in the banter, he will do all this kind of stuff, you hate him. Hate him all you want. Call him an idiot or an asshole. Yeah, I understand that, you want to draw a fine line with the insults or whatever. But, when you cross the line into making fun of their skin and throwing things at them and making monkey noises and actual intent to do bodily harm, like, again, you're not a man, you're a scumbag, you're a clown. Frente Atlético are clowns. I will say that right now. Frente Atlético are clowns. People at the Chiringuito that support this kind of shit are clowns, like Beton and all these people that come out sometimes defending this kind of stuff, and they don't want to come out and actually say it. What is it? Gil Manzano? No, not Gil Manzano. What is this guy's name? Cerezo and Gil and all these guys that defend these things and say, oh, it's because Courtois was being provocative, because Courtois, I'm sorry, Courtois, I am sorry that you're so offended, Frente Atlético fans and Atlético fans. I'm so sorry that your delicate sensibilities are offended by a guy who you've been telling to drop dead the entire game, and when his team finally scores, he turns around and is like, all right, keep yelling at me, keep yelling at me, keep yelling at me. That is literally all he did. He didn't turn around and say, hey, guys, why don't you go, take it up to whatever. And he's not telling, your mom should go take it up to whatever. And he's not saying all of that kind of stuff to you. All he said is, you want to keep saying stuff? You want to keep saying stuff? Keep saying stuff. And you get all bent out of shape. Oh, he's hurting our honor. He's hurting our honor, man. Fuck your honor, bro. If a player turned around and celebrated in front of me while I'm at Madrid, whatever, with my kids, I'd probably laugh about it, dude. I'd be like, it's football, dude. Banter. I'd be pissed that we're losing, but it's banter, man. It is what it is, because some of us are normal, level-headed people, And anyway, Frente Atlético, you guys are clowns. Beton, you're a clown. El Chiringuito is full of clowns. And those who support their antics or antics like theirs are also clowns. You guys, if you're so invested in this game that you're willing to go to jail for the club, a club that doesn't care about you, let's be honest. They love you as fans for sure, but they love you as fans because you're paying a ticket. You're making them money. Like, let's get real here. Let's drop some truth bombs. You're going into the stadium. You're paying a ticket. You are paying essentially the helping pay for the stadium and the concessions and all the kind of stuff that's going on, and making them money, which they can end up paying the players and hiring the players for. You're not paying the players' salaries, you fools. You're helping the club get enough money to pay for the players' salaries. But once that team can't pay for the player's salary, that player can easily go somewhere else where he will get paid, So for you to say, oh, we're paying their salaries and all this no, you're not. No, you're not. No. So, honestly, to be this invested, I understand. Love the game. I love it. I love Real Madrid. It breaks my heart when they lose. I feel like shit all day when they lose, especially when they lose against Barcelona, especially when we drew against Atlético when we could have won this game. Yes, I felt the pin in my stomach. I was pissed, right? But that was the end of it, man. For you people that are so invested in this, that it's like your entire identity, that your entire identity is Real Madrid and everything and your whole life revolves around Real Madrid. Listen, man, here is some advice from your big brother, Eric, from the Y Nada Más podcast, right? What I think you guys should do is open a book, touch grass, get a job, make some money, find a girlfriend, and have a life outside of just football, people. It's not that deep. At the end of the day, be a fan, don't be a dick, right? And 2 middle fingers to Atlético Madrid and Frente Atlético. 2 middle fingers. Not to the and not to the players, not to the players. Although, I'm not going to talk about it. I don't want to talk about it, but the whole Simeone and Coque and Jimenez going and like trying to calm down these Nazi pricks and like ask them permission. It's basically like asking terrorists, can we please have a norm? Can we please have a peaceful game today? Can you guys let us have a peaceful game? We're begging you. We're begging you. That's the team asking these scumbags for permission. So that's a bad thing right there. That was bad. But Atletico probably has a lot of good fans. I've never met one. I'm not that I've never met a good Atletico fan. I don't know many Atletico fans. I think I've never run into an Atletico fan that has told me straight up, I am a fan of Atlético Madrid. But I'm sure there are great Atletico fans with their kids and everything like that. But they tolerate the worst kind of people in their stadium, and that needs to change for the good of their team, for the good of La Liga. And it's not just their team. It's other teams like Valencia and Mallorca who, have had issues with racism and that kind of stuff. And it needs to get, and like I said, it's not me saying only like Real Madrid is free from all this. No. Real Madrid has plenty of scumbag fans. There are enough Madridistas on Twitter that I can't sympathize with at all. That'll talk trash, that right now, just talking about this game against Atlético Madrid, immediately start trashing Ancelotti because of the 1-1 draw. Oh my God. And then every time the game, the team isn't playing up to par, it's just Ancelotti out. This guy sucks. They love to bring up the former Everton coach. When, listen guys, before he was the Everton coach, he was the coach of Inter Milan, he was the coach of Real Madrid, he was the coach of PSG, he was the coach of Bayern Munich, he was the coach of all of those teams, and Chelsea as well, and won titles with all of those teams before going to Everton, which I think probably was getting older, thought to himself, I'm never going to get a chance with a bigger team, so I'm going to coach Everton now and try to see what I can do with a mid-table team. No disrespect to Everton, see what I can do with a mid-table team, see what I can do with them. And then when he's in the middle of coaching Everton, Zidane leaves. Real Madrid is struggling for a new coach, right? And Florentino calls Ancelotti, and the story, another beautiful story of Ancelotti coming to Real Madrid begins when he's won 2 more Champions Leagues and more La Liga trophies. So it's like, I just don't understand the animosity simply because, I don't know, he doesn't play your favorite player. I always say that. I can't stand Madridistas like that because he doesn't play your favorite player, because he doesn't do what you want him to do, because your FIFA tactics that you play in EAFC, you think that those would be better suited for this team than somebody who's been a coach at the highest level for over 30 years now, right? But you play a little bit of EAFC and a little bit of Football Manager, and you think that, if I just put Arda Güler here and I do this and I do that, sure, we all have opinions, but opinions are like assholes. Everybody has one, right? And the guy who really, really has the lleva la batuta, or what we say, is the one holding, the conductor's little stick thing at the end of the day, is Ancelotti. And so far, regardless of what you might think about him, and regardless of, yes, we're not playing to the best of our abilities yet, but I think, we will, because he's done it in the end. He's done it before. We will get there, and we're still undefeated. We're at 40 games undefeated now under Ancelotti. But some of you still want to call for his head, and some just outlandish things are said about Madrid, about Ancelotti, about some of our players. And I mean, I criticize them too, because it's normal. Like, I criticized Lucas Vázquez, of course, Vallejo coming on the other day and bringing him on, but it was because the Bernabeu started singing his name, and everyone's like, give the kid a chance. And I don't know if it was like a meme or a joke or what was going on, but they gave the guy a chance. And I thought, okay, they're giving the guy a chance. We're winning. Well, we were winning 3-0 at the moment. And you're like, okay, well, what can possibly go wrong? Well, everything went wrong. And so that poor kid really did probably not help his cause, right? And at least not for me. Just don't bring him back on. But I don't sympathize with that type of Madridismo. I don't sympathize with that. If you're going to start cussing out players and stuff like that and throwing things at people, being a Madridista, that's not my Madridismo. That's not my Madridismo, So I'm not going to sympathize with that. So I'm not going to fall into this whataboutism kind of stuff, right? All right, let's go back to anyway, on a positive note. So let's talk about coming into. So, yes, I understand that people are pissed at Atlético Madrid that we lost the game against that we drew the game against Atlético Madrid. We score the goal. Militao scores the goal. Shit hits the fan because Courtois celebrated by waving his hand. All the little girls in Frente Atlético start losing their minds. And I use little girl as a pejorative to say that they're acting like little children, little girls, because no disrespect to little girls who probably handle themselves much better than those idiots in Frente Atlético. But let me just, for sake of the argument, say the little girls of Frente Atlético lose their shit and start tossing lighters and bags of food and bottles and stuff at Thibaut Courtois. The game has to get suspended because, their panties are in a twist because now they're losing the game against the rival that's been their rival forever and that we kind of perpetually always beat their asses. So they're in a tizzy. The game has to get renewed. Obviously, Ancelotti makes some changes. The changes, I agree, were not the best. They weren't exactly what I was thinking. Why is he bringing on Fran Garcia? I think the one that surprised me the most is why is he bringing on Lucas? Why is he taking off? Who did he take off? He took off Rodrigo, I think, and he took off. Obviously, he took off Vinicius, but then he's putting in Lucas Vázquez. He's putting in Fran Garcia. Maybe he should have done a like-for-like switch with kind of a similar switch with Arda Güler for Modric. Who knows what was in his mind, right? But for me, it was Ancelotti being pragmatic, being the Italian conservative player style that he wants to play, the defensive Catenaccio style of playing, bunkering down the hatches. We say, is that term? Batting down the hatches, right? And saying, we're going to close this out. We're going to close it with 1-0, with a 1-0 draw. A 1-0 victory. That's what we want. And that's how the game is going to end, right? That's what he was hoping to do. And it didn't happen. But did it happen because Ancelotti did that? Or did it happen because Rudiger and Militao didn't track back and they lost their man? Right? They lost their man. Because if you look at the play of that play, you see them both looking at Javi Galán making the run and losing sight. They lose sight. There is a split second that both Rudiger and Militao kind of slow down their pace as they're making their track, as they're tracking back, because they're more focused on where Javi Galán is, and they start losing. And it was at the last moment that Militao realizes that Ángel Correa is making a run. And by the time he realizes that Correa is making that run, he is already too far away from Ángel Correa to catch up with him. And it wasn't even the greatest goal after that. It's like it takes a little, stumble, it hits, it bounces off people, and by luck, it falls back into the foot of Ángel Correa. It's for him to push it into the goal. That is how the game ended. But it is a momentary lapse in judgment from our defense. in the last minutes of a game that they could have closed out. It had nothing to do in a lot of ways. I don't think it had to do with us, putting on, double fullbacks or wingbacks and saying, that's how we're going to close out with a line of 6 people in defense. I don't think that was the cause of it. Sure, yes, if you would have gone forward and offense is the best a good offense is the best form of defense. Yes, we could have had Vinicius run and hold up the ball, but you got to also think about this too. Let's bring the positive note into it, and I'm going to close out this entire crazy ass podcast with this. But the positive note is that we came into this game. Real Madrid had defeated both Espanyol 4-1 and then Alaves 3-2. Obviously, that game at the end with Alaves got a little shaky. The goals coming from Kylian Mbappé and some of our other guys like Rodrigo and Vinicius, and Mbappé looking like Mbappé of old before catching an injury, and now it looks like he's miraculously recovered, which is great. Doesn't seem like it was that big of an injury. Thank the Most High for that, but it seemed like we were getting kind of back into form. And so we were starting to see those positives. And things are not all negative despite the draw, because Barcelona lost points. We saw that they can be beaten. I believe, to me, Barcelona does not have the depth to continue playing the way they play consistently throughout this entire season, playing the way they've been playing. They make mistakes. Flick has made mistakes. He will make mistakes again. It happens. Games, you sometimes have games where you don't play as well. Sure, we're 3 points behind them, but that can change at any moment. We can win El Clásico, which I think we're the better suited team to win that than they are. It's you got to take and we're still undefeated. So things are not all negative despite getting the draw. Yes, we should have gotten the 3 points. But see, this is where I go back to this whole idea of coaching is a thankless job, because, of all of you hating on Ancelotti. Because I guarantee, and people have little memory as well. Because, yes, Carlo Ancelotti has done so many things for this team, right? And gotten us through so many things. And people like to say, we've won things not because of Ancelotti, but despite Ancelotti, right? But you don't win everything that this guy has won based on luck. He has solid players that seem to buy into his system, that seem to buy into his personality, and will go to war for this guy, and will fight to the death for this guy, and will also fight to the death, combine that with fighting to the death for Madrid, and will play till their legs fall off. And with guys like Fede Valverde, with guys like Vinicius, with guys like Rodrigo, who can be inconsistent at times, but will show up at the most opportune times for us. Now with Mbappé, we've had Benzema, we've had Toni Kroos, we've had Modric, we've had all these guys, amazing guys with our team. Camavinga, Tchouaméni, it's just not to name all of them, but we have all these guys, and we've done it with Carlo Ancelotti. So while Carlos Ancelotti's changes weren't the best, honestly, I guarantee you, if we would have closed out this game winning 1-0, nobody, including all the Madridistas that want to talk all this trash on X and on Twitter, nobody would have cared that he played that defensively if we would have walked away with 3 points. Nobody would have cared. We would have been happy with the situation and said, maybe Ancelotti had a good idea. Maybe he knew what he was doing. But as I've said before, when it comes to coaching and when it comes to kind of closing out these games, one of the best ways of describing is it's damned if you do, you're damned if you do, and you're damned if you don't. Because if you decide to close down shop and play defensively and invite pressure, and you hold out the game, then you're a hero. But if you concede, you're a villain. So you look stupid in one way, and you look stupid in one way, a genius in the other, right? None of you guys seem to care when Real Madrid played defensively with almost everybody in the box, last season in the Champions League, second leg? We don't do second legs anymore, do we? Right? No, we don't have away goals anymore. Sorry. In the second leg, when they decided we are just going to sit back and defend, nobody cared. When we won, people didn't care because it ended up leading to us getting the 15th Champions League title, moving on to the final, playing Dortmund, winning the Champions League final. We did that. Ancelotti employed the same tactics, So once again, at that point, great. Gracias, Carlo. Gracias por todo, mister. Right? Thank you for everything, coach. But it's damned if you do and you're damned if you don't. So right now he's the enemy because they scored on us. It's just ridiculous, man. It happens. And it's not an easy, it's a Real Madrid derby against a difficult team in a difficult environment, full of a bunch of asshats, full of a bunch of racist pricks, saying all sorts of stuff. A coach that's a goddamn nut job, and guys who love to play you say that we play anti-football, but they play anti-football too. So two sides that just did not want to engage, maybe had too much respect to each other, maybe were too worried about losing because they knew what it meant. They both wanted to win because they knew that a win would get them closer to Barcelona, who's the leader right now. So both of them were worried about making a mistake. And they played conservatively, both of them. And it was a hard game. It's a derby. That's what happens. Draws can happen in a derby because, you're both. So it's a game with a lot of intensity, a lot of pressure, right? So I don't hold it against them, and I'm glad we got 1 point away at the Metropolitano. We're still in second place. We're only 3 points off of Barcelona. We're still undefeated. Try to see the upside in this, guys. Try to stop being such negative Nancy's, And then another thing, I mean, Endrick, to bring up Endrick, guy scores a banger versus Stuttgart, and all of us were saying, wow. A lot of Madridistas and a lot of, pundits and stuff were saying, this kid has some balls on him, a lot of personality. He's making a run on goal. He's got Mbappe, World Cup winner, possibly one of the best players in the world at the moment. Probably a future Ballon d'Or winner himself to his left. He's got Vinicius, most likely the next Ballon d'Or winner to his right. He's got these two guys. He's only 18 Endrick is only 18 years old. He's making a run at goal. These two guys are open. Guys that are probably better suited to take the shot than he is. And he decides to just take a shot, and it's a rocket on goal. Awesome. Because he scored it. But a lot of us are saying, had he not scored it, it'd be a huge problem, right? And but yesterday, the same thing happened. Endrick, on a breakaway, has Jude to his left making a run, although he's not, so close to goal, but it would have given him more chance. Or you try to hold up the ball till you get, because there were more Madrid players coming than there were Atlético players coming. You try to hold up the ball and try to maximize your chances of scoring. But he decides to take the shot, try and be the hero again like he was against Stuttgart, and try to do the same thing. But as the saying goes, guys, lightning doesn't strike twice. So in this case, it was a bad decision. He wanted to guarantee us a win. We're only up by 1-0. We're only up 1-0 in the Metropolitano, away, against a team with a lot of pressure on us. The game is not close to over yet, and he decides to do that. And that is also unforgivable. That is also something that, he needs to reevaluate and be like, okay, listen, man, we loved it when you did it the other day, but we can't, you gotta calm down. You can't do that now. You know what I'm saying? Anyway, guys, that's my story. That's what I'm sticking to, man. That's where I'm at, with this kind of thing. I know this was longer than usual, but, really, it had to be said. and I wanted to say it. It's kind of what I believe. It's the way I think about football. I love football and everything, and I feel it's a huge part of my life, but it's not the only thing in my life. Not so much that I'm going to sacrifice family, friends, my own freedom, my own morality, my own humanity, whether or not I'm a hero in the eyes of my son or being a good moral compass for my kids. I'm not going to risk any of that by being an absolute dick over a football match, right? So that's it, guys. That was today's episode. Thank you guys again for listening to the Nada Mas podcast. Really, I appreciate it. To all of you, if you have people, friends that love Real Madrid, that are English speaking, maybe they speak both, just like I do, but they're interested in getting to know more about Real Madrid, following Real Madrid. Hey, man. Tell them to listen to us. We are available, of course, on everywhere you can find your podcast, Spotify, Apple Podcasts, wherever. And then, of course, once again, I remind you guys, please subscribe to our YouTube channel. You can watch the podcasts or you can listen to it if you have a YouTube Music or YouTube Premium or whatnot. Leave it on in the background. But help me with the views. Leave a comment. Leave a like. I'd really appreciate it, guys. Thank you very much for listening once again. And I think that's it. That's all I got for today, man. Thank you very much. And I'll talk to you guys again soon. We play against Lille on Wednesday. Hopefully Mbappe will be back. We'll see what happens. It seemed like he was ready for that. It seemed like he was ready to play again, but we'll see what happens. And with that said, guys, thank you very much again for listening. Talk to you again soon, and a la Madrid always, y nada más. Stay safe out there, guys. Don't be dicks. Be fans. Love football. Don't lose your minds. All right? Thank you.